There it is. My job.
Good evening, everybody. I have 7:30, so we're going to call this meeting to order. I would ask that you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Harris, if you could call the roll, members, please.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Ballantyne. Ms. Craig.
Here.
Ms. Diaz.
Here.
Mr. Grapera.
Here.
Mr. Smith-Waddell.
Here.
Mr. Soto. Here. And President Reichenbach.
Here. Councilor Ballantyne is excused for this evening. I would ask for the approval of the minutes for the September 24th, 2019 meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Council comments from the public? Hearing none. Mr. Harris.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Grapera.
Aye.
Mr. Smith-Waddell.
Aye.
Mr. Soto.
Aye.
And President Reichenbach.
Aye. Before we move into proclamations, honors, awards, and resolutions of recognition, I would like to request motions on two items to be tabled this evening from our agenda. First, I would ask that we table Council Resolution number 55, 2019, recognizing the contributions of Jewish Americans. We were made aware that there will be some individuals who'd like to attend our next meeting in 2 weeks that would like to accept that award, and we certainly want them to be able to attend that meeting. So with Council's permission, I'd ask that we take a vote to table Council Resolution number 55 until our next meeting, which is October 22nd. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Council comments? From the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Ms. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
Mr. Rivera?
Aye.
Mr. Smith-Waddell?
Aye.
Mr. Soto?
Aye.
And President Reichenbach.
Aye. Secondly, I would ask council to take a vote on tabling Administration Bill Number 15, 2019, which is authorizing the taking by eminent domain the utility easement at 1411 Columbia Avenue. We were made aware of the fact that we either close to or have made a agreement with the owner of that property. So at this time, we'd like to table that indefinitely in hopes of getting that deal finished. So could I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Council comments from the public? Hearing none. Mr. Harris.
Ms. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
Mr. Rivera?
Aye.
Mr. Smith-Waddell?
Aye.
Mr. Soto?
Aye.
And President Reichenbach.
Aye. Thank you. Now we will move right into proclamations, honors, awards, and resolutions of recognition. First off is Council Resolution Number 54, 2019.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster recognizing October 2019 as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer History Month, and encouraging all people of the City of Lancaster to work to advance the cause of equality and towards achieving a safe community that appreciates its diversity in all its forms for generations to come.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Hear a motion and a second. Councilor Smith-Waddell.
Thank you, President Reichenbach. I think it's perhaps uncannily timely that we are doing this today as the Supreme Court takes on a number of issues that are going to affect the ability of LGBTQI people to live and work in this country, possibly for generations to come. And so with all eyes on that, it's nice, it's good to remember that Lancaster has its Human Relations Commission, its strong anti-discrimination ordinance, and that we're always seeking to do better and happy to honor queer folks in this way. I believe Mr. Barry Russell is here and will make a few remarks before we move forward.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Mayor Sirachi, President Reichenbach, Councilors Bernie. In 1994, Rodney Wilson, a Missouri high school teacher, believed a month should be dedicated to the celebration and teaching of gay and lesbian history and gathered other teachers and community leaders. They selected October because public schools are in session and existing traditions, such as Coming Out Day, October 11th, occurs this month. The LGBTQ plus community is one of many communities worldwide that has not taught its history at home, in public schools, or in religious institutions. LGBTQ plus History Month provides role models, builds community, and makes the civil rights statement about our extraordinary local, national, and international contributions. Gay and Lesbian History Month was endorsed by GLAAD, the Human Rights Campaign, the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force, the National Education Association, and other national organizations. In 2006, Equality Forum assumed responsibility for providing content, promotion, and resources for LGBTQ plus History Month. You can visit those at lgbthistorymonth.com and see over 400 LGBTQ plus icons, including Tab Hunter, actor and singer, James Beard, a world-renowned chef, Francisco Cartanego, a Puerto Rican activist, Joyce Hunter, gay pioneer, and Pennsylvania's very own Dr. Rachel Levine, Pennsylvania Secretary of Health, and the highest appointed openly transgender person in government. This year on the icon list, you can see Ethel Allen, a trailblazing politician, Pete Buttigieg, a candidate for U.S. president, and many others. As I stand before you today, I want to say that I am a representative of the LGBTQ plus community, but I do not represent the whole community. So I'm going to ask my fellow LGBTQ plus siblings and our allies to stand with me as we accept this resolution.
Please come on up.
I am proud every day, but I am especially proud this October, this LGBTQ plus History Month. I am proud of the community I get to live in, love in, and even disagree in. I am proud that Lancaster chose to be one of the first in the Commonwealth to add sexual orientation and gender identity to its non-discrimination ordinance. I am proud we have a Human Relations Commission that works every day to assure Lancaster is a safe place for all its citizens. Because we seek to do justice, not just for the LGBTQ plus community, but for all the marginalized communities, both within our wider movement and with those in the intersections of oppression, areas of race, ability, class, age, etc. Yes, I am a proud gay man, but I am more proud of what we have done and continue to do together than what I am as an individual. So to Mayor Sirachi, President Reichenbach, city councilors, community members, thank you for recognizing, supporting, accepting, and affirming the LGBTQ plus community through this resolution. Your efforts are important as they set an example and a model for the rest of the Lancaster City and County community and the broader community as well. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere. Council President?
Yes.
We did not vote.
We did not vote. I want to give people an opportunity to speak before we voted. Is there any council members that would like to speak? If not, I just wanted to thank you and everybody who came tonight. And it certainly is at the top of the list of proud things with my experience in the city, both on council and just my life in the city, that we certainly don't always get it right. But I'm proud of the fact in this case that we constantly try. We're trying and we're trying and we're trying. And it makes me really, really proud. And the embarrassment at the federal level will continue to be an embarrassment, but we'll get past it. But we work together in this city, and it's wonderful, and it's loving, and it's amazing, and it's just great to feel it. So thank you for everything you've done over the years, and thank you for allowing us to be a little part of it, because this is a small part. You and everybody in your community are doing the real work. So thank you for letting us be a little part of it. It's meaningful.
I do want to add that I believe, and my hope is that this resolution will hang in the new LGBTQ plus Coalition Center at the Candy Factory. And it will be a physical embodiment of the work we are trying to do.
Sounds wonderful. Well, let's make it official and call for a vote, shall we? How about that? Mr. Harris?
Ms. Gregg?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
Mr. Rivera?
Aye.
Mr. Smith-Waddell?
Aye.
Mr. Soto?
Aye.
And President Reichenbach.
Aye. Thank you again. Congratulations. Thank you so much. We will move on to mayoral proclamation recognizing Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Mayor Sirachi.
Thank you, Council President. I'm pleased tonight that there are members here from our Domestic Violence Services. I'm going to ask them to join me at the podium in just a minute. The theme for this month is what's your one thing, your number one thing that you're going to do to and I'm not speaking to this as so eloquently as Christine did the other day, but what is the one thing that we as a community can do to raise awareness, visibility of domestic violence, as well as support individuals who may be victims of domestic violence right now? And we had a very lovely coming together at the Community Action Partnership in celebration of the domestic violence services to hear a little bit more about the numbers of affected individuals that have sought services through our domestic violences services. And I don't know how to articulate the impact that I have felt as mayor as it relates to this particular issue. We live in very close proximity to one another, and I have not had an issue that is as paralyzing to a community as domestic violence. It is very difficult to know what to do in these circumstances. Sometimes in the effort to aid, that could potentially be making a situation more volatile, more dangerous for a victim. And I've seen firsthand our neighborhood, and one neighborhood in particular, struggle hard with the aftermath of a domestic violence incident that ended with a fatality. And so this has been something that I always knew about and always felt like I was an advocate for, and in my role as mayor have seen this up close and in person in terms of the ways that it affects our community, and it runs really deep. And so for me, the one thing is continuing to speak out about domestic violence, continuing to be patient and supportive of individuals who are in situations in which they are victims of domestic violence, and being at the ready. As a community, to be at the ready for when a victim is ready to make a move, to be there to connect to services, to be there to support that person with every step of the way. This is something that can be prevented. We must do more to talk about domestic violence. We must do more to just I guess just be respectful and love each other at the very core of this. But there is an amazing team of people in our county that provide these services on an ongoing basis. So if those folks, Christine and other staff that are here from Domestic Violence Services will join me at the podium, I'll do this official proclamation, which I'll keep really short, and turn it over to you to say a little bit more.
Thank you, Mayor. Please come on up.
Okay, so October, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. There are nearly 75,000 victims of domestic violence who sought services from programs and shelters across the country. More than 9,000 requests for services, including emergency shelter, housing, transportation, childcare, and legal representation. That's in one day, 75,000 in one day. Whereas the impact of domestic violence is wide-ranging, whereas racism, homophobia, transphobia, ageism, and discrimination based on physical ability and nationality or other factors helps to perpetuate domestic violence and makes finding safety even more difficult for some victims, and whereas the need for safe, affordable housing continues to be rated as the survivor's most urgent and pressing need, and whereas Lancaster joins with other Pennsylvanians and the nation in supporting victims of domestic violence, as well as local programs, state and national organizations who are committed to increasing public awareness of domestic violence and sending a clear message to abusive individuals that domestic violence is not tolerated in Lancaster or anywhere. Whereas domestic violence impacts millions of people each year, but it can be prevented. Preventing domestic violence requires collective voice and power of individuals, families, institutions, and systems, each whose number one thing adds a valuable and powerful component to transforming our communities. So I therefore, Deneen Sirachi, Mayor of the City of Lancaster, hereby proclaim October 2019 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and in recognition of the important work that is done by the 4 people that are standing in front of me and so many others. And also recognize what it means to be a helper in this space means digging deep and being patient and being ready. And for that, I appreciate all of what you do and declare this month as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, my goodness. Feel kind of overwhelmed by that. Thank you so much, Mayor Sirachi. Thank you to all of you for having us here this evening. We really appreciate it. Last year, Domestic Violence Services served nearly 1,600 adults and children with safe house or emergency shelter, 24-hour hotline, legal services, children's programming, counseling, and transitional housing. Legal advocates drafted 178 protection from abuse orders and accompanied 468 victims to court. Our attorneys represented 548 clients in civil, legal, and PFA actions. We know that this is just the tip of the iceberg. We know that 1 in 3 women will be a victim of domestic violence in their lifetime, and we also know that thousands of children are impacted each year right here in Lancaster County. We're taking a number of steps to increase our community profile over the next year, including the launch of a text hotline, since that's the way most of us communicate now. Users will be able to text SAFE, S-A-F-E, to 61222 for immediate assistance. This month provides us the opportunity to raise awareness and gain support in the community, which is critical to our efforts. We're in partnership with local coffee shops this month where awareness materials will be distributed. The Silent Witness Project is traveling around the county to commemorate lives lost in Lancaster County, and I believe that's over nearly 30 lives in the last decade. And we'll close out the month with an event on October 29th at TELUS 360, where survivors will share their stories of pain, hope, and healing. As Mayor Sirachi mentioned, our theme this year is #OneThing, because we know that one thing that will end domestic violence is the use of our collective voices and our collective power. So I would challenge all of you and everyone in this room to think about what your one thing might be, to commit to do to end domestic violence, and then go ahead and do it to help our efforts. Thank you again for recognizing Domestic Violence Awareness Month and the services that DVS provides. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you to you and your staff or your colleagues who took the time to come out. Really appreciate the work that you're doing for our community. Thank you very much. It means a lot. If council members will indulge me briefly, there is an honor/award that we received today that I think is of importance that the mayor would like to mention, and I want to give her a moment to do so. So, Mayor?
Actually, I'm going to invite Darren Parmer and one big check to come forward.
Okay, let's do that. I'm always a fan of checks coming in. It's a wonderful thing. Mr. Parmer, sir, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Terrific. What do you got there?
Excuse me. To the council and Mayor Sirachi, I thought I would bring this here tonight. We were in Harrisburg today to receive an award from the Housing Urban Development Lead Hazard Control and Healthy Homes Program for the sum of $9.7 million.
Excellent. Look at that. That's a pretty check right there.
I think you're going to be needing this, Mayor.
So we'd like council to join in signing this because this is very momentous. We've never received an award this large. The largest amount of money that we've gotten from this program is $1.5 million. We are adding to this $9.7 million a match to bring this to $11.1 million, which is all going to the south side of our city to eliminate lead poisoning from our city's homes. So,
Awesome.
yeah. Okay, So I'm going to keep this up here, and I would love for City Council, and anybody else who would like to sign this. It just it's a really big deal for us, and I appreciate all of the support. And our lead team, a small and mighty threesome that is going to get dramatically bigger to carry out the work of 710 units over 5 years.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Thank you, Mayor. And just, again, thank you for you and your team that worked on this. Years ago when we were first talking about it, it's been an issue we've talked about for ages, but really thinking about how to combat it, and it seems like such an insurmountable task. Like you can't do it. It can't be done. There's so many houses. And then reaching out to other communities that have really, really worked hard, Baltimore, other places that have put resources and expertise into it, and they've made a real difference and saved people's lives and saved communities and children from poisoning. So the fact that you and other members of your team took the time to do that research and really dig in deep is a really, really big deal, and it's going to have a direct impact on the future of our kids. So thank you, Mayor. It's awesome. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done. Absolutely terrific. So, and thank you, Darren, as well. It's a heavy check to carry up. Thank you. And I want you to strain your back carrying that check so big. I appreciate you. So we'll move on to our public comment period, the first one of the night. That's reserved for citizens who contacted the city clerk prior to tonight's meeting to request the opportunity to address city council. I would ask that you limit the duration of your comment to 3 minutes. Mr. Harris, do we have anybody who called ahead this evening?
Yes, we do, Mr. President. First, we have Sarah Johns of Mom's House.
Terrific. Good evening. And as you're coming up, I want to say thank you for the material. Appreciate the opportunity to go through it. Thank you. If you could just introduce yourself in the street that you live in.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Sarah Johns with Mom's House of Lancaster. Thank you so much, City Council. I greatly appreciate your time. I am here as the Executive Director to tell you a little bit about our local nonprofit. We are on the south side of Queen Street. We are a non-residential nonprofit that empowers single parents and their young children to set and obtain educational goals through parent support, mentorship, early childhood education, and safe childcare at no cost to the family. We do this by helping single parents achieve their educational goals so that they can enter in the careers of their choice to be financially independent and contribute to the community. Programming at Mom's House is very comprehensive. We take a two-generational approach to end the cycle of poverty. We not only provide academic and family coaching and a full array of programming, referral mapping to adults, but we also provide programming and activities to start their young children's lives on their own educational success. The families we serve are often transitioning from poverty, homelessness, and domestic violence, and they are doing so by getting the education necessary to enter into the workforce and establish careers. It is important because of what they have experienced that we provide comprehensive services for their whole family, so they can then heal and then realize their full potential. While there's no typical type of family that comes to Mom's House, the majority of our families are headed up by single mothers. Our youngest mom was 14 and our oldest was 42. So they're all on their own independent journeys, but focused on bringing their family out of poverty. She typically has 1 to 2 children and is very eager to obtain her education, whether that's a GED or all the way up to a master's degree. Last year, we served 19 families and 26 children under the age of 5 that needed care during that time. Our individual impact from the services that we provided is small but mighty, is 73, which for our organization has been an all-time high. All the families were very deserving at this second chance for all the opportunities that we offer at Mom's House. At Mom's House, we are changing lives, families, and local communities through education. I appreciate the time that you've given me to come here today just to inform you about our organization and just ask you to look through the information that I've provided and just reach into your heart and provide any sort of resource to the families that we're serving to offer any input to better their lives. So thank you so much for all of your time.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the work that you do as well. I'll tell you, as the son, a proud son of a single mom who stigma for years about coming from a single parent home, but my mom is amazing, was amazing, and continues to be. Thank you for the work that you do and your emphasis on education. My mom had the opportunity to go back to school to get her LPN and RN certifications, and that was through a lot of help from a lot of people at the time. And if she hadn't had that help, she wouldn't have been able to do it. And I think of literally the thousands of patients over her 30-some-year career that were helped because of those people that allowed her to do that and her to be able to raise a family as well. So it's definitely personal to me. I appreciate the work you do, and thank you for it. Mr. Harris, do we have anybody else who called ahead?
Yes, Mr. President. Next is Sydney Brookmeyer.
Ms. Brookmeyer? Not seeing any. Do we have anybody else who's called ahead?
No, we do not, Mr. President.
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Harris. We will move to reports requested by council. We are going to introduce our new Love Your Block program, AmeriCorps Vista. Mayor Sirachi.
I'm going to ask Renee to come forward and Christian.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Look at the smiles. I love it. Just ready to rock and roll.
Oh, yes.
The energy is great. Hello.
So I guess we just want to take this time to introduce ourselves to the council. I'm Renee Adelman. I am a recent graduate of Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and I received a Master's of Science in Geography with a focus on environmental planning. I decided to take a year to dedicate to AmeriCorps, to serve AmeriCorps before I started my career, because I wanted to get back to a community before I began my career. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Sounds good. And my name is Christian Cassidy Amstutz. I'm originally from Hershey, PA, so right down the road. Grew up coming to Lancaster all the time. And I only have a bachelor's in writing. And I'd had a few years out in the workforce and am at a point of transition, trying to figure out next steps, but I've always been engaged with community service, community development, and I'm using this as a stepping stone and an opportunity for service. So we would definitely both like to thank Mayor Sirachi, President Reichenbach, the entire council for giving us this opportunity, and just briefly elaborate on what our goals for the next year are. We know that we're following in some really big shoes from Carl and Michael. They did a fantastic job. So fantastic, in fact, that the original target zone of Howard and Church Streets have been expanded to the entire southeast. And so within that, we are continuing to administer and manage the mini grant program for facade updating, street cleanup, beautification of neighborhoods, as well as a parks program to provide updates and expansion to existing and any new possible green spaces within the city. Beyond that, if you want to.
So we are running a fall round of the applications, and we've closed that already. And we have received 8 applications for Love Your Block grants. So we're very excited to look at those and kind of send those to our committee to make selections as to whether they will be granted or not.
Yeah, and then finally, just also continuing in the spirit of strengthening the neighborhoods in the southeast of the city, we're looking to expand existing neighborhood groups that are there, led by residents, as well as helping to establish new ones so that every resident in the southeast has their voice heard and is able to take an active part in leadership within the community. And finally, also expanding the Adopt a Block program so that hopefully by the end of our term here, every single neighborhood in the southeast is covered and is being served by residents to keep, healthy and clean streets. Thank
Wonderful.
you so much.
So exciting. And I would hope that I speak for council, and I think I do. Please feel free to reach out to us. Your predecessors were more than happy to reach out with questions, suggestions, opinions about neighborhoods. Members of council up here have lived in multiple different neighborhoods across the city for many, many years. Doesn't mean that we're experts on it, but it just means we're more than willing to help you and share our ideas. So please feel free to use this as a resource. Come to us, talk to us, and ask any questions you have.
Wonderful, thank you.
Great. Thank you. Good luck. I know
you.
you'll be great.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. We will move on to our reports of committees of council meetings that were held last night, October 7th, 2019. We'll start off with Public Safety Committee. Councilor Soto.
Thank you, Council President. I have nothing to report. Public safety did not meet
Thank
yesterday.
you. Move on to Public Works Committee. Councilor Gapera.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Public Works Committee addressed four separate resolutions. Administration Resolution number 53, donating the fallen firefighter statue to retired city firefighter Clyde Snyder. Administration Resolution number 58, requesting an automated red light enforcement program grant for Christian Street intersection improvements. Administration Resolution number 59, requesting an automated red light enforcement program grant for flashing beacon lights at school locations. And Administration Resolution number 60, requesting a redevelopment assistance capital program grant for Cooleyton Park improvements. And we'll discuss those in more detail as they come up on the agenda.
Terrific. Thank you. Economic Development Committee. Councilor Craig.
Thank you, Council President. Economic Development had one item on the agenda. It was Resolution 56, 2019, approving a project to be undertaken by Lancaster Municipal Authority. And we will talk more about that as we go along.
Thank you. Move to Finance Committee, and in place of Councilor Ballantyne, Councilor Gapera.
Thank you, Mr. President. One administrative resolution, number 57, was discussed, authorizing the application of a strategic management planning grant. And we'll talk more about that when it comes up on the agenda. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Community Planning Committee. Councilor Smith-Waddell.
Thank you, Mr. President. We discussed two items, the first of which we've already resolved on, which was Resolution number 54, 2019, the ordinance recognizing the LGBTQI community, and we also discussed a HARB recommendation for 316 West Chestnut, which we'll be addressing shortly when it comes up on the agenda. That's all, Mr. President.
Thank you. And Personnel Committee. Councilor Diaz.
Yes, Mr. President. The Personnel Committee met last evening, October 7th, and reviewed two nominations from the mayor for a reappointment to the Human Relations Commission. And I'd like to make a motion that David Cruz and Jean Daly be reappointed to the commission for the term of September 30th, 2019 to September 30th, 2022.
I hear a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Council comments on the reappointments from the public? Hearing none. Mr. Harris.
Ms. Gregg?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
Mr. Gapera?
Aye.
Mr. Smith-Waddell?
Aye.
Mr. Soto?
Aye.
President Reichenbach?
Aye.
And that's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you. We'll move right into our legislative agenda. And first on the legislative agenda is Historic District, considering the following applications and recommendations from the Historical Architecture Review Board for improvements to properties within the Historic District. And we have Scott Gardner, owner of 316 West Chestnut Street. Mr. Harris.
Yes, Mr. President. Scott Gardner, owner of 316 West Chestnut Street, requests replacement of wooden siding on a roof dormer with new engineered siding. And that application was recommended for denial by the Historical Architectural Review Board.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Just for clarification's sake, an aye vote for this would be to approve the recommendation of the Historic Commission to deny this, and a no vote would be to overturn that recommendation and to allow the replacement, just for clarification purposes. We have council comments on this topic. Or Councilor Smith-Waddell, this was brought up at your committee last night. Do you have a comment on that?
It was. So What we're looking at here, and I believe we have representatives of both the HARB and the applicant here this evening. What we're looking at here is replacing part of the wooden sides of a dormer with a synthetic material with a similar appearance. And just for context, we have recently dealt with and decided in favor of a separate application for a similar proposal. Did you have a comment, Councilman Grapera? Did you? Okay.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, please, there we go.
I just want to throw in that it's a third floor.
It is, right. And if we do, if council decides in its infinite wisdom that we will resolve in favor of the applicant and sort of overturn the HARB's recommendation, the information that's been offered to us is that we resolve specifically in favor of that third floor window dormer to make the precedent as narrow as possible in keeping with our previous conduct on that matter. If everybody followed me down that rabbit hole, thank you.
Yes, I did follow you. Thank you. Any other council comments? I'll just say that, again, this is one of the ones that's very difficult. These are the things that we're going to be dealing with. We have in the past, and we're going to continue to deal with them in the future. And I will say that I lean towards Councilor Smith-Waddell's thought of third floor. We recently did approve, I believe unanimously, a similar request. And as I stated the last time, and this is simply my opinion, this is not a slight on the HARB or the Historic Commission or anything like that, because they have certain parameters with which they have to work under. But I also think going forward, we are going to have to find a little bit of flexibility built into what we're allowing homeowners to do, particularly if they're going out of their way to use materials that may not be exactly what historic commissions would like to see, but seem to be qualified under good materials, that they're really trying to do the best work, and people that are really keeping up with their homes. I think it's going to be incumbent on council in the future as a legislative body to take those things under consideration. And when we talk about making precedent, I think we and this is again speaking for myself, not we as a body, but I sometimes get caught up with setting precedent as a fear of doing the right thing. And in reality, precedent is what decisions are made at that time. So I think precedents are when items come to us, we look at them in a good faith effort and we review them, we make the best decision possible at that time. That's how I try to look at these things. And I think making blanket generalizations just puts us in a box. And this city is only getting older. People are only going to have more of these decisions to make, and council is really going to have to struggle with that decision going forward. So I think in this case, third floor, in my opinion, doesn't change the integrity of the historic structure in the least, doesn't change the view from the street in the least, and that's simply just my opinion. It's not stating as a fact. So I'm kind of content going that route myself.
Yeah, I will also take the opportunity to say that this is probably a good reminder that Council, HARB, Historical Commission, I guess Chris and the mayor should come together and make some decisions about what this is going to look like moving forward, because at least in the 2 years almost that I've been on council, the decisions that we've made only seem to get more complicated and more nuanced. So we need to decide whether we're going to stick with our old party line, develop a new party line, but we need to get a consistent understanding under control as best we can. That's the limit of my comments, Mr. President.
Sure, thank you. So I know there are people in the audience. Is there anybody here from the HARB or from the property themselves that would like to speak? I want to give you that opportunity. Yes, please, come on up. If you could just share your name and your street, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
I'm Kathleen Peck, 324 West Chestnut Street, and I've been on the HARB for 12 years. I'd like to start, thank you for hearing us this evening. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I went on the city website to read about the HARB, and it states the HARB district was created by City Council to safeguard our architectural heritage by establishing a thoughtful review process for all changes to the exterior of buildings in order to prevent hasty or inappropriate alterations of demolition. The HARB is asked to use the Secretary of Interior standards in our review. Those 10 standards emphasize the importance of original materials. 5 of the 10 standards reference materials in the actual written standard, stating things like protecting them, preserving them, repairing rather than replacing, and if replacing, matching the original in color, texture, and if possible, using the same material. We, the HARB, are to use these standards taking into account economic and technical feasibility. As I said, I've been on the HARB for 12 years, and during that time, the HARB has been diligent in conducting consistent reviews in all areas, and particularly when synthetic materials have been proposed to replace original materials. Board members feel strongly about their role to encourage consistency in the use of authentic materials, which will protect the authenticity and value of the structure, ultimately protecting other residents' property value in the HARB district. In the case of 316 West Chestnut Street and the prior dormer siding case, which you referenced earlier, the HARB followed the protocol that was established by the City Council, and after thoughtful discussion and scrutiny of the standards, determined it was inappropriate to replace the original wooden siding with a synthetic material. Had we recommended approval, we would not have upheld our duty as given to us by the City Council. We know that any of our recommendations are precedent-setting. Approval of the use of synthetic materials on a third-floor dormer can be referenced when requesting use of synthetic material on a first or second-floor window. The Secretary's standards do not distinguish up to what floor the standards are applicable. They are applicable to maintaining the integrity of the entire building. And I would say that the HARB, if this is denied or reversed, we will need to have a clear understanding of why our recommendation is being reversed by City Council, because it's going to be hard to know how to move forward as an effective board without having the support of City Council or a clear understanding of why our recommendations are not being upheld. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. We have any other comments? Sure. Yes, sir. Come on up.
Good evening.
Hi.
Joel Zeizet with EB Exteriors. I'm here on behalf of the owner of 316 West Chestnut. And I was the contractor who was in charge of the project. And so one of the reasons, we had talked about this a little bit in the subcommittee meeting last night. I appreciate your time there as well, Councilman. But one of the reasons that we had talked about this product was because it did meet a lot of the requirements that Kathy has already discussed. And in fact, I think many of you, if not all of you, did receive a packet from the owner of the property. Referencing in there, included in that packet, was some of other towns and cities that have allowed this product to be used in historical districts, and also there are some, much smaller list, that have even allowed it on small historical projects as well. So the point is just, I appreciate your comments, Mr. President. The point is just that this product looks the same, and I think that there's a lot of benefits to it, not only for the owner, but also for the city long term. I'll keep my comments to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I will say we did receive some information from the applicant, and one of the things, upon doing some research that was interesting, was a brief that was sent by the National Park Service Technical Preservation Services, and it was small, but I think it kind of speaks to, and this is from the NPS itself, that kind of speaks to the challenge of this, which is, and I'll just quote briefly, states that substitute materials can be cost effective, can permit the accurate visual duplication of historic materials, and last a reasonable time. Growing evidence indicates that with proper planning planning, careful specifications, and supervision, substitute materials can be used successfully in the process of restoring the visual appearance of historic resources. Now, that's not the only fact on that. There's many other from the Department of the Interior, but I think it speaks to the challenge, and I hear you from the HARB. I mean, this is not easy, and it puts you in a very clear bind at this point. So I think I would refer your comments to Councilor Smith-Waddell earlier of this is a bigger conversation to have about which way are we looking to go and what kind of guidance can we give you. So your comments are not falling on deaf ears. This is certainly a conversation we need to have, because I think what we don't want to have is a consistent renewal of this situation over the years where you're making decisions based on the information that you're given as a HARB, and then council is simply overturning those, and then we're having a situation where you're not feeling effective in your role. So I think it certainly deems more conversation. I think that'll be coming down the pike. So I do hear you on that. Are there any other comments from council or from the public before we take a vote? Okay, hearing none. Again, just to clarify, an aye vote is agreeing with the denial, which is upholding the denial, and a no vote is disagreeing with the denial and allowing the replacement. So we're clear on what our vote. Yes?
Just to clarify, did we have an originating motion?
We did not.
No. Okay. Yep. So at this point, I would ask for a motion one way or the other. I would say that may actually guide which way we're going to do the aye or the no in that case. So depending on which way the motion is brought. So do I hear a motion one way or the other? And then we'll determine exactly how we're going to aye or nay. As everybody is quiet.
Not everybody at one time, right? So I motion that with stipulations according to Councilor Smith-Waddell in regards to the third floor thing that you mentioned. Dormers. Yeah, I forgot the word. I motion to allow them to proceed with the synthetic material, with moving forward with stipulations in each request. Does that make sense?
To clarify, I just, and I'm not speaking for you, but I think to clarify that we are going to continue to look into this further, and that this isn't setting a precedent for every other decision going forward.
Absolutely.
This is this case for this situation. That's how I heard it. Other council members hear that? Okay. So we have a motion on the table to allow the replacement and overturn the HARB's decision. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. In this case, an aye vote will be to support that motion and to allow the replacement. A no vote will be to disagree with that motion and to uphold the HARB's decision. Are we all clear on that? Aye is allow, nay is disallow. Mr. Harris.
Yes, Mr. President, a motion to grant a certificate of appropriateness.
Correct.
Ms. Gregg.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Rivera.
Aye.
Mr. Smith-Waddell.
Aye.
Mr. Soto.
No.
And President Reichenbach.
Aye. So we will move on to the rest of the resolutions on our agenda will be those that are voted on this evening. We'll move on to Administration Resolution number 53, 2019, donating the fallen firefighter sculpture to retired city firefighter Clyde Snyder.
The resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster donating the sculpture known as the Fallen Firefighter to retired city firefighter Clyde Snyder, in whose likeness the sculpture was created.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Council comments? Or excuse me, Councilor Grapera. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Mr. President. As Mr. Harris said, the artist who created the statue, George Mummert, and retired firefighter who modeled for the sculpture, Clyde Snyder, have requested the statue to be given to them so that it can be placed at Clipper Magazine Stadium. The statue is now in front of Fire Station Number 3. The upcoming reconstruction of a larger station on the site will not allow the space for the statue. The artist and model feel strongly that it should remain outside a publicly visible location. The city believes this is the best interest of all parties to transfer ownership of the statue to Mr. Snyder, and he will arrange for its placement outside of the stadium.
Thank you. Other council comments from the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Excuse me. Ms. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
Mr. Gripera?
Aye.
Mr. Smith-Waddell?
Aye.
Mr. Soto?
Aye.
And President Reichenbach?
Aye. Administration Resolution Number 56, 2019.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Lancaster, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, approving a project to be undertaken by the Lancaster Municipal Authority for the benefit of Luther Care, a nonprofit corporation, and declaring that it is desirable for the health, safety, and welfare of the people of the area served by the facilities being financed as part of such project to have such facilities provided by or financed through such authority.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Councilor Craig.
Thank you. This resolution 56, approving a project being taken by Lancaster, by Lancaster Municipal Authority, known as the Authority Amended. The Authority periodically finances projects that qualify and meet the guidelines that are required. It's my understanding that Luther Cares, Luther Acres, located at 50 Luke Drive, Lidditz, PA, Lancaster County, meets such guidelines and is desirable for the health and well-being of the people in the area, both in the city and in the county.
Thank you. Council comments from the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Ms. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
Mr. Gripera?
Aye.
Mr. Smith-Waddell?
Aye.
Mr. Soto?
Aye.
President Reichenbach?
Aye. Administration Resolution Number 57, 2019.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster authorizing the submission of an application seeking funding from the Governor's Center for Local Government Services Strategic Management Planning Program and authorizing the administration to execute a contract with PFM Group Consulting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Councilor Gripera.
Thank you, Mr. President. The State Department of Community and Economic Development's Early Intervention Program has recently been renamed the Strategic Management Planning Program. The program originally provided financial resources to municipalities in financial difficulty. It has since changed to provide financial and management planning assistance. With grant funding, a consultant will conduct a management and financial review of the city operations. The study recommendations will ensure the long-term financial stability of the city. The city will contract with PFM Group to perform the study. The company's proposal was the best of 6 submitted. The state program will pay half of the $124,975 for the study. The resolution authorizes an application for that funding. Results of that study are expected in late February. And if Mr. Hopkins would like to add anything to that, did I leave anything out? Thank you.
Nothing to add. Thank you, Councilor Brett. Mayor, do you have anything you want to add on that?
Just to say that this is both exploring how we can reduce expenses, increase efficiencies, as well as looking at additional other revenue models. And I'm very excited to begin this process. I just want to underscore again that Lancaster is not in financial distress. We're lauded as one of the healthiest third-class cities in the state, but even as We celebrate our successes in managing our fiscal house and maintaining expenses that don't grow by more than 3% every year. We have raised taxes 8 of the last 14 years, and we cannot continue to do that.
Agreed. Thank you, Mayor. Any other comments from council? From the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Ms. Gregg?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
Mr. Gropera?
Aye.
Mr. Smith-Waddell?
Aye.
Mr. Soto?
Aye.
And President Reichenbach.
Aye. Administration Resolution Number 58, 2019.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster accepting an automated red light enforcement grant of $458,080 from the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation to be used for intersection improvements along its Christian Street.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Councilor Gropera.
Thank you, Mr. President. Administration Resolutions 58 and 59 are very similar, but we must take them separately, so or vote on them separately. So basically, it's the grant of $458,080 for the intersection safety improvements on Christian Street between McGovern and King Street. The state grant program requires a council resolution to accept the grant. This resolution will satisfy that requirement and allow the city to enter into the grant agreement.
Thank you, Councilor Gropera. Any other comments from council or from the public? So what we'll do is we'll vote on this one, then we'll have the second one read and then go right into that vote, because I'm assuming it's the same covering for both your comments.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so Mr. Harris, call for a vote on Council Resolution Number 58, 2019.
Ms. Gregg?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
Mr. Gropera?
Aye.
Mr. Smith-Waddell?
Aye.
Mr. Soto?
Aye.
And President Reichenbach.
Aye. Then I'd ask for a motion and a second for Council Resolution Number 59, 2019, after Mr. Harris reads it into the record.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Harris, wouldn't mind reading it into the record?
Yes, Mr. President. A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster accepting an automated red light enforcement grant of $105,000 from the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation to be used for the upgrade of school beacon flashers.
We have a motion and a second on the table already. Council comments? From the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Ms. Gregg?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
Mr. Gropera?
Aye.
Mr. Smith-Waddell?
Aye.
Mr. Soto?
Aye.
And President Reichenbach.
Aye. Administration Resolution Number 60, 2019.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster authorizing the mayor and the City of Lancaster to submit the RCAP formal application and business plan for $500,000 to the Commonwealth Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program for Southwest Lancaster City Revitalization Redevelopment Assistance Capital Grant Program Project.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Councilor Gropera.
Thank you, Mr. President. The City Community Development Administrator, Susanna Bartlett, said this resolution allows that the city apply for a $500,000 state grant. Previously, this grant money was to be directed to the Lancaster Housing Opportunities Partnership Program. When it became clear that the constraints in the grant program would make utilizing the funds for the LHOP program impossible, it was decided to redirect the funds to the development of Coolidge Park. That followed meetings with LHOP and Representative Sterla, who had secured the funds. The park is in the same geographic area of the city. The revised plan has been approved by the governor's office.
Thank you. Council comments? From the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Yes, Mr. President. Ms. Gregg?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
Mr. Gropera?
Aye.
Mr. Smith-Waddell?
Aye.
Mr. Soto?
Aye.
President Reichenbach.
Aye. We'll move into our second public comment period of the night. And
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
Just a note regarding that resolution.
Yes.
Because the earlier resolution was tabled, I will renumber that resolution so they're in sequential order.
Correct. Thank you for reminding me, Mr. Harris. I appreciate that. We'll move on to our second public comment period, which is open for comments about issues that were not on tonight's agenda. I would again ask for you to limit the duration of your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anybody who'd like to speak to us this evening? Seeing none, I'll move to the report of the mayor.
Thank you, President Reichenbach. Yesterday morning, I had the privilege of attending the second annual Hispanic Heritage Month Business Breakfast, Cultivar, that was held over at the Lancaster County Chamber of Commerce. Last year, you might recall that it was in this room, and we quickly outgrew that space. And I was really pleased that the Chamber of Commerce, the Lancaster City Alliance assets, the Community First Fund, and our own community planning and economic development staff participated in presenting and sharing resources that are available to our business community. The entire event was held in Spanish to ensure that it was accessible to everyone. And entrepreneurs of color, in particular, during this Hispanic Heritage Month, are really key to our emphasis on building strong neighborhoods. There are many neighborhood-based businesses throughout our city, and this was an opportunity for them to network, to learn about some of the resources that the city has available, as well as our other project partners. And what was really exciting was that before we left, we had at least 2 businesses who had made connections and were pursuing additional opportunities to expand or grow their business and needing some assistance. And another highlight from yesterday was a business owner that came last year to the breakfast and cites that event as the inspiration for her to start a second business as she pursues her dream of having this additional business opportunity. So it was really exciting, and it's really great to see the visibility of the Latino business community, and appreciate all that they offer to our business community here in the city, the county, and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Report of the President of Council. Just briefly, I had the opportunity this weekend to attend the Pennsylvania Municipal League annual summit in Gettysburg. I was joined by Mayor Sirachi and Councilor Diaz. And just a few things of note. It's really amazing when you join your colleagues and you have conversations about what's happening in your communities. Particularly on the municipal level, well, mainly on the municipal level, when you realize how quickly politics go by the wayside and you realize what people's needs are on the street level. And we talk to people every year when we go to these events that are in traditionally conservative areas, traditionally far, what would be considered liberal areas. And our problems are very similar when it comes to keeping our streets cleaned and keeping people safe and ability to raise revenue. And it's just refreshing. I wish everybody could have a taste of it, particularly what our climate is at the federal level right now. Have a taste of what it's like when you get municipal leaders together and everybody's on the same team, not in terms of how to do it, but just that we're recognizing we're all trying to do the same thing for our community. And it's very refreshing. And it's, I think it's good for our community leaders to do that. Mayor Sirachi was appointed second vice president of the organization, which is terrific for this city because it gives her a leadership role, which she's very clearly ready to use and will be very welcome. Councilor Diaz had the opportunity to speak with a lot of members there and also did a comic skit with the Second City Comedy Troupe, which was pretty amazing. I know it's out of context, but if you had seen it, you would have thought it was phenomenal. So hundreds of elected officials around the state now know her as the funniest elected official in the state, which is pretty great, but she did a great job as well. So we talked about issues like pension reform, municipal radar, things that we all need to get accomplished in this state. And I think Councilor Diaz would agree. It's very refreshing to be around your colleagues, so it's certainly worthwhile. And I would hope that after this year's over, I'll be stepping aside with my role with the Municipal League, that other council members will take up that lead and continue to serve in that organization, because I think it brings a lot of value to our city. With that, I would ask for other council comments. I hear none, that I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all for coming out this evening.